Alright, so this is the sheet right here. I'm pretty sure you have the email with a clearer picture of it. But the title of the TED Talk was What It's Really Like to Have Autism. The name of the speaker was Ethan Lizzie. The date and number of views was 399,812 views, and it was posted on April 2nd, 2020, so pretty recently. So the speaker starts off by talking about like these stereotypes that people think autistic people have, like lacking emotion, showing less empathy, and some of them known for being super geniuses. And as much as some of those are right, he also points out that a lot of it is misconception and it's wrong. So he goes on to talk about what it's actually like to have autism, because he has it himself, and he talks about what's going on inside his head when he does certain things such as stims, which is what autistic people do when they're feeling overwhelmed or over happy, or when they're overwhelmed with emotion, to calm them, and they use it to either express their emotion or to calm themselves down. So the objectives that mostly corresponded with this TED Talk was, it was humorous because he uses his autism to make the audience laugh. He's very inspiring, even to someone who doesn't have autism. You can learn a lot about what he's talking about and see, and it gives more context on why autistic people act the way they do. It's also very intellectual and persuasive, so it does change your opinion about autistic people and teaches you about them, of course. So the ethos is a speaker's ability to build credibility, establish himself as an expert, and convince whatever. So how he's on the stage pretty much is, he himself has autism and has a lot of experience with being bullied and made fun of for his autism. So that inspired him to do research on what actually is autism. So yeah, he pretty much uses past experiences to give context on what it's like to have autism. And also, what better person to talk about autism than someone who has autism? So it makes sense that he's the speaker. So the pathos is an appeal to emotion. So he was very engaged with the audience. He also speaks very clearly, and you can tell he has autism, but he's still very articulate, which also, his speaking is slower, but it suits the person that's talking. So TED Talk presenters are known as effective public speakers. Describe two things a speaker does well in terms of engaging with the audience. So at one point during the beginning of the video, he uses hair to make the crowd laugh, and autistic people tend to use themselves as kind of the laughing stock because it's easy, and it honestly makes them feel better at the end of the day because they made other people happier by using something they have. So he's making the best out of his situation. He also has good body language and great eye contact with the audience. And he also speaks clearly, and he's very articulate and doesn't stutter too much, unlike what I'm doing now. So write 2 specific things you learned from this presentation. So what I learned is, even though I have autism, I learned that people with autism don't lack empathy. They just don't know how to show or express it in every situation. So if let's say, an autistic person is opening a present, an autistic person will go all fucking excited and happy and stuff like that, whereas a normal person would just smile and say thank you. So autistic people are they exaggerate in certain situations, but in other situations they won't show emotion at all, because they just don't know how to express it. The second thing I learned is that autistic people are constantly feeling lots of emotions at the same time, which I can attest to. And they all feel it at once, and this is why they don't know how to express it, is it's overwhelming, and their brain can't process it. And then they just look what normal people see as retarded, which is when they'll freeze there or stim or do stuff like that. That makes them look not normal. If you could ask the speaker a question about his or her information or presentation, what would you ask? I would ask what his life was like before he got diagnosed with autism, just to see if maybe his parents had trouble with him, or if they noticed anything in him if he was younger that could show signs of it. Also, give 1 piece of constructive criticism that would improve the presentation. I would have liked to see if he talked about other mental health issues that could have affected, that does affect autism in different ways, and if he's ever struggled with any in the past or right now. What group of people would benefit the most from hearing this lecture? Other people with autism are people who just want to learn about the autistic brain's function, and honestly, it's just neat to watch. Honestly, all TED Talks, you can watch and learn something from, even if it's the most boring one in the world that you don't agree with. There's always something that you learn from them. But this one I learned, but yeah, the people that would benefit the most would be people with autism trying to understand what's going on with their brains as well. Because he does give a lot of context about what's going on in the background. And that is it. Alright.